let's see. Well, would you look at this? The cabinet of Dr. Calamari. Behold, Loligo opalescens, a.k.a. Pacific market squid. This is the squid you will most often get when you get squid in western states. Now, here we have the common eastern varieties, the Atlantic longfin and shortfin, which pretty much taste exactly the same, although I have been told that the shortfin are considered by some to be a little bit more on the chewy side. Now, I like to buy squid whole whenever I can, but only when I know that I'm going to cook them within hours. Even on ice or in a cold refrigerator, high-protein squid will decompose quicker than Mozart with an electric eraser. That is why cleaned, cut, frozen squid are the standard of the restaurant industry here in the United States. And that's okay by me because squid freezes and in some cases even refreezes fabulously. But if you are committed to working with fresh, you're going to want to buy the freshest you can get. So use your nose. Odds are, if they smell stinky with any traces of ammonia, you will want to pass. I'm told that color can also be an indicator of freshness. You want the skin to be slimy, not dry, and the color should be dark and mottled, never pink. Let us examine today's dinner. Let's see, here we have the tube, the fins, the head in the middle. Kind of odd, but that's the way it is. There are the two eyes, and then, of course, the tentacles here. Now, our first cut is going to be to separate the tentacles from the head. So just kind of feel around. There'll be a little lump where the beak is, and cut. Now, if you just squeeze the tentacle, out will pop air, the beak. Now, believe it or not, this is the only part of the squid that is not digestible. And in fact, the first evidence that scientists had of giant squids were finding beaks the size of human heads inside the stomachs of sperm whales. That's really cool. Okay, next. Just move your fingers up into the tube, get hold of the head, and gently pull. And just pull straight out. There. Now, there's one more part to remove. Reach in, and you'll feel something that's kind of plasticky. Pull that out, and there you have the quill. Believe it or not, that is the closest thing that a squid has to a bone. Kind of reminds me of sheet gelatin, only I don't think you can make dessert out of it. Now, usually the skin is removed, and for that I just kind of get a little incision going, and then you can just pull it off quite easily. And there you have it. Now, some people like to pull off the fins. I usually leave them on, but it's not that hard. Po-pat, po-pat. Anyway, to turn this into calamari, all you have to do is cut this into narrow rings with either scissors or a sharp knife. Of course, for calamari, we'll need a cooking medium. A crucial key to calamari cooking is heat control. It all begins with a heavy Dutch oven in the 4 to 5 quart range. Why a Dutch oven? Because it's cast iron and it will hold heat. We're going to put that over medium heat and then add 2 quarts of peanut oil, which I like for its high smoke point and neutral flavor. We're going to bring this up to 375 degrees. How will we know? Because we're going to use one of these. Just slide that on. There. Back to the squid. As for fabrication, we will take each of the tentacle sections and slice those in half so that they do not overwhelm the palate. As for the tubes, knock those down into 1/3 to 1/2 inch slices thusly. If you want to knock a little fishiness off your squid, just give it a quick bath in cold water. Just make sure that you dry it thoroughly before you attempt to coat and cook. As far as getting rid of this old water, well, let's see. Batter and breading sticks better to dried squid, so you might as well go ahead and use the spinner the way it was intended. There we go, bone dry and ready for batter. Many's a batch of calamari that sunk like a rock under a dumpling-like load of breading. Whether you prefer the batter coating or the simple dredge, the goal is the same, lightness. Now, for those who want just a wee crunch, we'll take the dry approach. We have the dredge, containing 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour and 1/2 cup of plain cornmeal. Not grits, not cornbread mix, okay? Now just whisk together, and that's pretty much it. For those who prefer a little more calamari coverage, we will assemble a batter thusly. We have here 1 cup of ice water. We'll get that ice out. Into that goes 1 cup of all-purpose flour and whisk to combine. Don't worry, there are going to be a couple little lumps, no big deal. Then we're going with 1 egg. There. Now, this is essentially a tempura batter, only without the rice flour. Now, using ice water will keep the batter light by delaying the gelatinization of starch in the flour, and that will keep the batter from absorbing too much oil. Since you want this light and thin, do not mix the batter until you are ready to do your cooking. This is not the kind of thing you can make ahead. And now we fry. We will begin with the dry dredge version. The only other piece of equipment we must have, one of these. We'll begin with a very small handful of squid. You don't want to overload the pan. A bit of dredge action. Fish that out with the spider, and you want to get as much of the dredge off as possible so we don't foul the oil. There we go. We are at 375, so in we go. Notice I'm doing this by hand, piece at a time, not just dumping it in there. If you just dump it, it'll turn into a crispy golf ball. There. Now, as far as time goes, we're talking probably 45 seconds to a minute tops. That is, if you were monitoring your heat correctly. We're not looking for a deep brown, just a light golden. Anything darker than that will overwhelm the flavor of the calamari. Time to evacuate. We scoop and move over to our clever draining device, which of course is nothing but a cooling rack turned upside down on a piece of newspaper on a half sheet pan. A little seasoning while the squid is still hot. Some salt and a little black pepper. Now, you may consume that while you are letting your oil come back up to heat, because you do not want to put in the next batch if the oil is not at 375. Now, I like to keep the squid as dry as possible, so I set that on a towel inside a bowl before evacuating the squid in small batches to the batter. Just kind of punch it down with my spider there and into the oil. Again, one piece at a time, or you'll end up with a big old golf ball of squid. Not that that would be a bad thing. 1 minute later, and the squid is ready to come out. You'll need either a second spider or a slotted spoon to get that out. Remember, the other one's got batter all over it. A little salt and pepper, and you're ready to serve.
Mighty tasty bait you made there, Mr. Brown.
Well, I'm glad.